We'll begin in 5 minutes. Please settle down. Thank you. We are beginning with the program. Please settle down. Also to turn your phones to silent mode. Okay. Good afternoon. I, Architect Aloka Kare from the ASA Executive Committee, welcome you all to today's event of inclusive design. We will begin with the national anthem. So those who are able, please rise up.
जनगण मन अधिनायक जय हे भारत भाग्य विधाता पंजाब सिंध गुजरात मराठा द्राविड उत्कल बंगा विंध्य हिमाचल यमुना गंगा उच्चल जलधि तरंगा तव शुभ नामे जागे तव शुभ आशीष मांगे गाहे तव जय गाथा जन गण मंगलदायक जय हे भारत भाग्य विधाता जय हे जय हे जय हे जय 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 हे
Thank you.
जन गण मन अधिना
I now invite the President of ASA, Engineer Parag Lakde sir, to please address the crowd.
Hello. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. On behalf of ASA and as a President of ASA, I welcome you all for this panel discussion and program of inclusive design, curated and led by Architect Kavita Murukkar, Architect Radhika Vaidya, Professor Dhananjay Bole sir of Savitribai Phule University, and Datta Babu of Prahar. I welcome you all, as well as Abhijit Murukkar as an accessibility expert. I thank you, Bnca, for their support as always. I am also eager to listen all these panelists, so without taking much time, I welcome you all again and request you to enjoy the treat of knowledge for this afternoon and evening. Thank you.
Before we begin, I would like to introduce you to what ASA is. ASA is Architects, Engineers and Surveyors Association, Pune. We are constantly curating various programs to gap the difference between the industry and the academics and to bring a lot of experts to create awareness with their knowledge. So we also recognize and acknowledge different practices throughout our industry for their excellence design work as well as construction. And if you're interested, do become our members. That's from our end. So as I mentioned about experts coming in, so today we have an exclusive event on inclusive design. I would like to introduce you to our speaker, Dr. Kavita Murukkar. Dr. Kavita Murukkar is a distinguished architect, educator, and universal design evangelist with an impressive 20-year track record in both education and practice. Her unwavering passion lies in disability inclusive development and rights, specializing in the fields of diversity, inclusion, and accessibility. Throughout her career, she has relentlessly advocated people-centric and inclusive design policies, conducted groundbreaking research, and fostered inclusive practices in design industry and various professional platforms in India. With a doctorate at the intersection of disability, architecture, and built environments, she is recognized access auditor, trainer, and specialist with the Ministry of Social Justice and Empowerment, Government of India. Dr. Kavita Murukkar also serves as the principal of Bharati Vidyapit College of Architecture. We'll have a presentation by ma'am, then a panel discussion with all our panelists, and then question answers at the end. So ma'am, please, I invite you. A round of applause, please.
Uh, Thank you so much, Aloka, and a very good evening to all of you present here. Extremely grateful that you have taken out time from your busy schedules to be a part of this educational event. My heartfelt gratitude to to ESA and the office bearers of ESA for having taken up this initiative to arrange an exclusive event, like Aloka said, on inclusive design. This is a subject which is hardly discussed and needs visibility. Though we had anticipated more students and professionals in the audience, nevertheless, even few who are here, if their minds can be open to this reality that lies beyond what is seen as the normal world, I think the purpose of having organized this particular event would be served. So I'm very grateful also to all the panelists. They are extremely, again, busy professionals working in their own niches and contributing to the cause of inclusivity. And they are here to promote the whole idea of inclusive design. It really means a lot that you have been able to come here and be a part of this. To start with, yes, I would like to first start with sharing this vision of reimagining this world through the lens of inclusive design. Inclusive design is that opportunity to make something that is more than architecture. Let's see how. Let me start with the notion of diversity. Particularly in the field of architecture and design, we have always been talking and exploiting diversity. Diversity has always been looked at as not just a characteristic, but a necessary condition for life, which brings richness, which brings vibrancy, which brings purpose, which brings innovation, drives innovation. Like Churchill said, diversity is the only true thing we all have in common, and we celebrate it every single day. Particularly in architecture, we have tried to interpret diversity, which we see in nature, in the flora, in the fauna, in colors, textures, all kinds of tangible and intangible elements around us, in our culture, in people as well. But have we really seen diversity through the lens of abilities? And have we really tried to bring it into the creations, into our creations, into the designs we make? The world of design, but again, talking about architecture in specific, has always been based on the notion of the average human being, or the so-called perfect man. But in that foundation that we have laid for generations of budding architects, we have completely overlooked the reality of diversity that lies in humanity, in people that we design for. Our understanding of people has been limited to only people like us, whom we very conveniently call as able-bodied or normal. And hence those who don't fit into that framework automatically become abnormal. I would like to ask the audience here, who thinks they're completely normal? Then why do we really look at or divide the world with this notion? Shouldn't we look at this whole universe of people with a little more depth, empathy, and sensitivity? Truly speaking, people are not just limited to people like us, but to many more. Few of them have been listed here. And most of them are invisible sections of the society, whom we also called the disadvantaged or the marginalized sections of the society. And why are they marginalized? Who marginalized them? Have we really thought of them as includable or excludable? What has been the role of architecture in creating disability? Have we really pondered over this question? Is it high time that we ponder on this question? Indeed, yes. Why? I will put some light on that in my slides that will follow. Yes, I would like to claim that persons with disabilities have been the most discriminated by design. Barriers in architecture have been limiting persons with disabilities, not just from living a life that is meaningful, that is functional, that is productive. It includes depriving them of opportunities for education, employment, and hence empowerment. They've been limited to the four walls of their houses just because the building, the roads, the streets, the transportation, the workplace, the educational place is not accessible. And it's not just limiting them physically, but it has a tremendous impact on their mental well-being as well. It has, if we look at the stories that have been shared by persons, by users who have an impairment, they would share, not everybody is brave, not everybody is courageous, and not everybody gets that kind of a support. And those who don't, they undergo vulnerable conditions, they are exploited, they go through extreme stress, and sometimes also through suicidal tendencies. Who is responsible for this? Can we as architects just again ponder over this question? Are we responsible in some way? In design, persons with disabilities or persons with differences are persistently framed as included as excludable. We have looked at addressing needs of persons with disabilities or creating accessible environments as something which is not creative, which is mundane, which is stereotypical, and which is an add-on, which is going to end up with something that is going to reduce the aesthetics of the design. It's always been looked at as a problem of compliance rather than an opportunity for innovation. And hence, such kind of ideas, such kind of unsympathetic notions have overshadowed the role of built environment as an agent of empowerment, agent of inclusion. Let's look at the statistics. Though this is quite old, it's the World Disability Report of 2011. I don't have the latest one. But 15% of the global population then was persons with disabilities, and 80% of that population lives in developing countries. And my dear friends, as per the WHO, the highest population of persons with disabilities is in India. In fact, we are the largest country which has a number of disabilities, and these disabilities fall in a variety of spectrum. Most of the times, disability is looked at as a homogeneous concept. But one solution cannot work for a spectrum of disabilities, which lie between intellectual, sensory, physical, and sometimes a combination of these. Who is most affected by disability? The ones who are already marginalized, like the women, the senior citizens, and households that are poor. Coming a little closer to our reality, everyone is aging, right? Anybody who thinks we are not going to age? I'm not going to age? Yes, for some it's just a decade away, for some probably 2 or 3 decades away. Yeah, but that is an inevitable reality. And the fact is, the largest population living with a disability are senior citizens today. 1 in 4 people have a severe, 4 people in terms of persons with senior citizens have a severe disability. This is a graph which is showing the speed with which aging population is increasing. Today, indeed, India is a country of the young. But I'm going to show you another slide which is showing the speed at which the population of senior citizens is growing globally in different countries. And you can see the steepest curve is India. Yes, we have made a lot of medical breakthroughs and our life expectancy has increased. But has our quality of life and quality of health really increased in a similar way? I'm sure all of you will agree that we definitely are not doing good in that way. We could be having a long life, but will we be living a healthy life? A life without disability? Well, question marks. And as we age, we are going to have lesser and lesser people to take support from. And we will have to be independent in that way. And if we do not have an environment that supports the kind of impairments, the kind of difficulties we are going to face, we will probably again be confined to four walls. Talking about children, 1 in 20 children have a disability of some kind or the other. And as I speak, a newer form of mental disability is growing. And it is indeed a fact. Very sadly, 1% of the disabled children in India go to school. Now, you must be thinking, well, because they don't have the ability to learn, hence they are not going to schools. That's not the fact. The fact is, our schools are not accessible. The infrastructure, the learning pedagogy, the learning tools are not designed for different kinds of children, which limits them from becoming a part of the mainstream, from getting equal opportunities for education. Let's talk about other reality in terms of differences. Transgender, the third gender. I don't like to use the word third gender because I use that word in a similar forum, and there was a transgender person. And what he pointed out was, why call us the third gender? Isn't that discrimination? Now, these are very much a part of the society. But do we see them in a respective, living in the society with equal respect and dignity as we live? If you look at the news that has been quoted here, 92% of India's trans people are unable to participate in any economic activity. If they are not having equal employment opportunities and the right kind of attitude to integrate them, we are obviously giving them no choice but to get into objectionable employment or objectionable livelihood opportunities. Let us look at the legal perspective on disability. Way back in 1948, it was declared, all human beings are born free and equal, as per the Universal Declaration of Human Rights. Are we really living that? We got our independence in 1947. And the first Disability Act in our country was passed in 1995. That's almost 50 years after we got independence. So while we are enjoying our independence, there is a substantial section of the society which is still waiting for equal rights, equal opportunities, freedom, and independence. So there is a lot of legal framework. I can't go into depths because it's not supposed to be a discourse here. So I'm just going to brush upon this, but yes, there is an international mandate. The SDGs mandate this. There is accordingly a national act, the Right for Persons with Disabilities Act. The National Building Code has been amended accordingly. There are harmonized guidelines for building accessible infrastructure in place. There is Accessible India campaign like the Sarva Shiksha Abhiyan and the cleanliness drive. However, there is very less impact that we see on ground. What is disability? Is it a person's problem? Is it created by the individual who has impairment? Or is it created by the environment that is disabling or handicapping the person? Let me give you a simple example. A building being accessed by a person on wheelchair would be disabling if there are only steps. But if there was a ramp alongside, the person on wheelchair would be able to access it. Would you still call the person disabled? So in fact, my question is, why do we call the person as disabled or handicapped? Why don't we call the environment as handicapping or disabling? That's how we create negative identities. So the fact is, impairment, when it comes in contact with an accessible environment, inclusion is created. And when there are barriers in the way of a person with impairment, there is disability. Accessibility is not a choice. Legally speaking, yes, this is true. It is a mandatory requirement or mandatory duty for all who create infrastructure as outlined in the Right for Persons with Disabilities Act. But every single day, even today, as buildings are being sanctioned in the corporation across the country, are we really anywhere checking whether accessibility has been ticked off? The best part of universal access is, it's not just a need of the disabled, but a need for all. It benefits us as well. It makes life more comfortable, more easy, more productive. Let's look at an example. This is a curb cut. I don't know where we can really find these, the most appropriate ones, because Jangli Maharaj Road has some. They claim those are curb cuts, but they are rather rocket launchers, I would say. So it's a small ramp built in the pavement, which helps to negotiate from the road level to the footpath. Now, though the whole idea may have come from facilitating the access from road to footpath and vice versa, for a wheelchair user, it has been serving so many different kinds of situations and people. Young mothers, parents carrying strollers, right? Skaters, bicyclists, even regular pedestrians who are in a hurry or jogging, or simply people who are cleaning the pavements, to get their equipment up and down, or us when we are carrying our own luggage or trolleys, or the courier guy. Now, look at this particular feature, which is an accessibility feature or a universal design example, but is serving so many different kinds of people. Now, if this is not problematic to anybody, then why don't we see them in our footpaths? What is limiting us from getting them into our infrastructure? So what we need is revolutionary designs, materials and technology that can make our world more accessible, more usable, considering the weakest link. So this particular cross-section of the society that is represented in the form of layers of users, it's only indicating that as designers, we have to address all these layers. So if we design for the topmost layer, we would automatically be designing for all. This is a, next few slides are just talking about the present condition of Pune city in terms of the different spaces. It was audited few years ago, but I'm sure, the condition has not changed. So public parks, again, right from, signage to parking issues to level differences to accessible toilets being missing to, steps to negotiate, limiting wheelchair users to no accessible or inclusive play equipments. That's the condition. Railway stations, again, a lot of level differences, unexpected steps to negotiate, poor conditions of roads, footpaths, floors, ticket counters, hard to find, inaccessible in terms of their height, no warnings on the platform, etc. The list can go on. Bus stands, even worse condition. Public auditoriums, are they really accessible? One would think, well, a person with disability, let's talk about sensory impairment, who can't hear or, see. Why would they come to an auditorium? How will they afford leisure or recreation? Why would they be interested in art if they can't perceive it? Are eyes the only channel to perceive art? Can there be multisensory ways of perceiving art? Isn't recreation, leisure, entertainment a basic need and not luxury? And if it is a basic and fundamental need, shouldn't these social spaces, cultural spaces be accessible to all? Government offices, even to get some fundamental work done with respect to documents or whatever, even the latest award-winning building in our city, which happens to be the most important architectural government building, is not accessible. One simple example, you can see in the second picture, the control panel. Now that's a touchscreen control panel. Did the architect think how a person with visual impairment would actually operate this control panel, though it looks fancy? Schools and institutions, a sorry state of affairs again. Doors are closed for those who do not fit into the normal able-bodied framework. They are directed to special schools simply because the infrastructure is not accessible. Heritage and cultural sites, similar kind of a situation. The next few slides are going to quickly give you a visual imagery of all that we need. Accessible streets and city infrastructure. What you see on the left is a tactile path, curb cuts, demarcated parking areas for wheelchair users, zebra crossings, pelican signals. Are they really difficult to integrate into a smart city, one of the metro cities of the country? Accessible transport hubs. Similar examples. I think the slide is quite self-explanatory. Parks with opportunities to play for all kinds of children. Accessible healthcare. Sadly, even hospitals, very recently we did audits with Tattabhau for some most renowned and large hospitals in the PCMC area. And it was really a very, very shocking state of affair. Hospitals are the most, I would say, difficult to access, with absolutely, wrongly designed ramps and steps and specifications, slippery floors, granite floors everywhere. So, can we have more sensitivity in at least designing healthcare buildings? Accessible shopping? Well, far-fetched thought, but I think malls are the buildings who are actually incorporating accessibility guidelines because they follow international standards. And accessible heritage as well. So, I would like to conclude now by reminding everyone by saying that design has a lot of power. Let's use it as an empowering agent. Let's use it as a means to create an inclusive society, to challenge discrimination. Let's design for diversity, for life cycle. Let's design for all. After all, design is not just poetry, it is responsibility. It's simply, inclusive design is simply the right way to design. Finally, let's treat others as you would like to be treated. Thank you for the patient hearing. Embrace diversity. Thanks.
Thank you, ma'am, for creating awareness and sensitizing us more towards the terms of inclusivity and accessibility. And I think from not just social perspectives, but the design and technical perspectives, I think we can, as designers, can do much better. So this was a great experience for us. A huge round of applause, please, for Kavita, ma'am. We would like to felicitate you, please, ma'am. If you could come on stage, I request Engineer Parag Lakade, President of ESA, to felicitate Kavita, ma'am. We would like to felicitate our panelists as well and begin with the panel discussion. So, yeah. So I'll invite our panelists, Architect Radhika Vaidya, Principal Architect Athashri and Swaniketan. I request Architect Rajiv Raja sir to please come on stage as well, the Vice President of ESA. बंद करू का हे बरं आहे का? Professor Dhananjay Bhole, user expert and digital accessibility expert. Huh? Yeah. Bhole sir, please. He is the head of Inclusive Education Cell, SPPU. Round of applause, please. If you could wait on stage, will be. Sir, इथं किंवा खुर्चीत बसा. Yeah. Great. Shri Datta Bhau, disability activist from Pune. He runs the NGO called Prahar. A huge round of applause. Shri Abhijit Murukar, accessibility expert and founder of Design Bridge Foundation, Pune. He works for leveraging design as tool for empowering PWDs. If you both can join us on the stage, we'll begin with the panel discussion. Check, check, check.
Hello. सुरू करूया? Okay. So the panelists have been introduced by Aloka, but we must definitely hear more about them from them. So I would like to start this dialogue, this discussion by asking Datta Bhau. Datta Bhau, तुमच्याबद्दल थोडंसं अजून सांगा. तुमच्या इम्पेअरमेंटबद्दल थोडीशी माहिती द्या आणि तुमच्या कामाबद्दल की तुम्ही या विषयाकडे कसं वळलात आणि तुमच्या कामाचं स्वरूप काय राहिलेलं आहे.
जवळजवळ 2005पासून मी पहिल्यापासून होतो, पण ॲक्च्युली हे ज्या अडचणी आम्हाला यायला लागल्या ना, तर त्याच्या संदर्भात आम्ही आमचे अपंग लोक जमा केली सगळीजण. अनेक संघटन म्हणून हे जे काही सुविधा मिळवून घेता येतील की बाबा आम्हाला येणं जायला आमच्या अडचणी अधिकाऱ्यापुढं मांडायलाच जागा नाही आणि ते खाली येत नाही आणि आम्हाला वर जायला जमत नाही. मग याच्याकरता म्हणलं पहिलं यांच्यापर्यंत कसं पोचता येईल याची पहिले आपण तयारी करायला पाहिजे. त्यामुळे पिंपरी चिंचवडमध्ये सर्वात पहिल्यांदा महानगरपालिकेत आत येण्या जाण्याची सोय करून घेतली आणि त्यानंतर मग पुढचं जमवून घेतलं सगळं.
थोडंसं तुमच्या इम्पेअरमेंटबद्दल सांगाल की नेमकं तुम्हाला काय.
माझा 70चा जन्म आहे. त्याच्यानंतर एक 5-6 महिन्यात मला पोलिओ झाला. मुंबईमध्ये माझा जन्म झाला. पोलिओ झाल्यानंतर मग वडिलांनी आम्हाला तळेगावला शिफ्ट केलं, म्हणजे आमचं गाव प्रॉपर. पण तिथं रस्ता नाही, काय नाही, कसल्या सुविधा नव्हत्या. त्यामुळं आईच्या कडव बसून शाळेत जाणं आणि शाळेत पण एका वर्गात बसलं की शाळा सुटेपर्यंत तिथंच, तिथून काय बाहेर यायचं नाही. सुटल्यानंतर आई ज्या वेळेला न्यायला येईल त्यावेळेला घरी यायचं. म्हणजे अशा खेडेगावामध्ये अडचणीतून माझा त्याच्यातून विकास होत गेला.
धनंजय सर, can you please share a little more about you, starting with your type of impairment and your struggles. How do you look back at your childhood? How did you grow up? And more about your work.
Very good evening to everyone. I was born in a remote village in Jalgaon district, and my father was employed in ordnance factory Varangav. It was a township near to Bhusawal Tehsil, and there actually the facilities for persons with disabilities was not at par. And at that time my parents were thinking, I mean, I was born with a congenital cataract. I was totally blind by birth, and around 10 plus operations were surgical operations were done up to the age of 8. And at that time I was got delayed in my school, admitting to the school. My parents were reluctant where to admit him, And then they admitted me in a primary school in the ordnance factory area where I could study up to 1 or 2 standards. And then somebody has asked them to that they should, you should be given, admitted in the blind school or special school for blind. There I was admitted, but they have not considered my previous education up to third standard. Again, I have to went into the first standard. This way, I have completed up to 7th standard and 3 years with 3 years delay. Then after 7th, I directly went into the 10th standard by applying for 17th form and external. And since then, I have never looked back. I have completed my 12th science, and I was one of the very first person in India who has done 12th science, totally blind person. So it was challenging for me and my parents also. My parents were convincing me that science is not meant for you. I was saying that science is only for me. So this was the scene. And then I have pursued my graduation in botany and MBA in HR and MS in bioinformatics, and now I finished my doctoral study in academic accessibility and educational technology. So I think I don't know how much time I have. Otherwise, I will take entire time of the entire, what we can say.
Now I'm going to come back with the
panel.
next question, with another question in the next round. Moving to Radhika ma'am. Ma'am, you are not a person with disability. Still, what drew your attention and interest to this issue? Since when?
Well, I think everyone needs a trigger in their life to, realize certain things. And my sister-in-law was affected by rheumatoid arthritis at a very young age. She's a very brilliant person. She's an artist and a writer. But she has limitations on her mobility, and she cannot visit people, anybody, where she has to climb steps or there is no lift. So that was the first thing that struck me. And later in my profession, when one of my clients approached me with this idea of creating a housing complex exclusively for seniors, that is the time when we started doing some research on that, meeting people, meeting seniors, trying to understand their issues. That is the time actually I realized a lot of things, and that got me more into this world. Later, you start meeting like-minded people. So Anita from Ekant's Trust, she contacted me, and I attended many of her seminars organized by her. There I met persons with disabilities, different kind of disabilities, that further sensitized me about different aspects, more other disabilities. And that's how I've been following this. And once you get the thought in your mind, it consumes you, like it comes naturally to you. So every project, when I design, it automatically happens. And I feel while designing, if it is and if you incorporate the simple things like ramps, like you said, which does not look like it is added on. It's just naturally part of the design and the environment or the complex or the entire landscape. Even though I have handled so many sloping sites, most of my work has been on sloping sites, but I've learned to negotiate the slopes without much cutting, filling, and yet make it accessible. Thank you.
Ma'am. Thank you. Abhijit sir, so how was it being a father to a child on autism spectrum? Was parenting different? Did he have any special needs?
Good evening, everybody. Like Kavita said, our son is a person with autism. He's on the borderline spectrum. Now he's 18 years of old, and he's joined his college, graphic design, animation, graphics first year. It's been a long journey, a very enriching one for us as parents, for me as a father personally, because I think that God has given me this opportunity to be a father of a son who needs me to be more creative and more, involved in his upbringing and his childhood. So actually, I've enjoyed a lot from the day we realized that Adit is on the autism spectrum. That was 16 years ago. And from that point onwards, I'm sharing this personal story because people do not talk about disability. It's more always to be hidden under wraps. But I'm saying the point we realized that, Kavita and I realized that Adit is autistic. I don't remember a minute that we went into any negative mode. We just said, okay, now let's start. And it just happened organically that we started working on addressing the challenges that he had at that point in time. What actually happened was, as we started working with him, with a personal journey for us, we realized that there is so much to do, because right from first of all finding the right diagnosis, की what is it, तो काहीतरी वेगळा आहे पण म्हणजे काय, what is it, what is that वेगळेपण, so that to meeting, I don't know how many therapists and counselors we met and tried to figure out what this whole issue was. And from then on, kind of continuously working over the last 16 years to address his age-appropriate challenges, like going to a primary nursery school, then talking to his teachers and telling them that to thoda sa kaitri karel, but it's not exactly, that's not how you deal with it. So we had a tough time in terms of understanding first what all this meant, and then kind of conveying it to his teachers. It happens even now, as he's going to new college. First thing we do is we want to meet the professor and tell them, he'll do this, but you may have to tell him a little bit slowly or tell him differently. Thankfully, we met a lot of good people along the way, and things panned out. But most important part is that because of Adit, I got introduced to this field of disability sector, and what I was doing earlier on completely got left behind. Organically, God brought me into this, and now I'm working full time into disability sector, and along with my friends and colleagues like Dhananjay is here and Datta Babu, ma'am are there. We are trying in a small way of what we can do in terms of making this world a more inclusive space.
थँक्यू. दत्ताभाऊ, तुम्हाला प्रश्न आहे. इथे तुम्ही पर्सन्स विथ डिसेबिलिटीजला रिप्रेझेंट करत आहात. इज नॉट वर्किंग या. तर जसं मी म्हटलं माझ्या प्रेझेंटेशनमध्ये की डिसेबिलिटी तेव्हाच बनते जेव्हा एखादा बॅरियर म्हणजे एन्काउंटर होतं किंवा बॅरियरच्या समोर जावं लागतं. तर असे कुठल्या प्रकारचे बॅरियर्स असतात, अडथळे असतात ज्याच्यामुळे पर्सन्स विथ डिसेबिलिटीज गेट लिमिटेड? तुम्ही जरा त्याच्यावर थोडंसं प्रकाश घालू शकाल? सॉरी फॉर माय मराठी, द टुटा फुटा मराठी.
हां, प्रत्येक ठिकाणी हॉटेलमध्ये जावा, आम्हाला पण वाटतं सगळ्यांसारखं राहावं म्हणून, पण ह्या अडथळ्यांमुळं तिथपर्यंत जाता येत नाही आम्हाला. आत्तासुद्धा इतक्या ठिकाणी, आता रेल्वेच्या ठिकाणी अडचणीत, एस-टी स्थानकावर अडचणीत, बस स्थानकावर अडचणीत, काय थोड्याफार प्रमाणात केलं की त्यालाही कुठलं हे नसतं की बाबा कशा पद्धतीने करायला पाहिजे, किती टिकायला पाहिजे. आत्ता 2 महिन्यापूर्वी घरकुलला रॅम्प तयार केला होता, दुसऱ्या दिवशी पाऊस पडला की तो वाहून गेला सगळा. म्हणजे अशी एकंदरीत ती परिस्थिती आहे. तर या संदर्भामध्ये हे जे याच्यामुळं आमचा विकास अडतोय, आम्हाला जे पाहिजे जे मिळवायचं असतं ते आम्हाला त्याच्यामुळे मिळत नाही, हे अडचणीमुळे. धन्यवाद.
पण फक्त म्हणजे आत्ता तुम्ही जे सांगितले ते आपल्या भोवतालीतले बॅरियर्स आहेत, पण त्याच्या पलीकडे काही ॲटिट्यूडनल बॅरियर्स, त्याला काय म्हणूया आपण, की विचारांमधले
भरपूर,
त्याच्याबद्दल थोडं बोला.
भरपूर. सर्वात पहिली म्हणजे सहानुभूती नको आहे, संधी हवी आहे. तर त्या दृष्टिकोनातून पाहतच नाही. आत्ता तुमच्या माहितीकरता सांगतो, बच्चूकडू ज्यापर्यंत जेव्हापासून या क्षेत्रामध्ये आले आणि आमच्याकडे पिंपरी चिंचवडचं काम सोपवलं, त्यानंतर आम्ही सगळ्यात पहिलं अधिकाऱ्यांची मानसिकता बदलण्याचं काम केलं. आमचं जवळजवळ वर्षभर त्याच्यातच गेलं की बाबा पहिलं काय व्हायचं, आम्ही अधिकाऱ्यांशी बोलत बसतो आणि ते कानामध्ये पेन घालायचे आणि खिडकीकडे बघत बसायचे, आणि तुम्हाला माहिती आहे आमच्यासारख्यांना राग लगेच येतो. माझ्यासारख्याचं तोंड थांबत नाही. मग ते म्हणलं ही परिस्थिती पहिली बदलायला पाहिजे. मग त्यांच्यापाशी बसून एका अधिकाऱ्याला कन्व्हिन्स केलं की बाकीचे सगळे होऊन जातात, वरिष्ठ अधिकाऱ्याला. मग तो त्या जागेवर होता. आता त्या पद्धतीने करून मग आता हे हळूहळू काम चालू करून याच्यामध्ये कुठं बाबा अपंगांना येणं जाण्याकरता अडथळे मुक्त करण्यात येतील. प्रमुख मुरुखकर साहेबच पाहतात ते, त्यामुळं आता ते थोडं हळूहळू ते होऊन जाईल ते सुद्धा.
Dhananjay sir, do you think persons with disabilities have equal rights and opportunities in our country? Yes, then why don't we see them in the mainstream?
Actually, we have laws in place. We have all the rules that are, equal, what I believe in US, Canada, and European Union and Middle East and so-called developed countries. In fact, we are having all the proper rules and regulations. But the challenge is the equal opportunity is there on the paper. What I have experienced, I mean, my experience could be, others' experience could be different, but my experience is all the rules are at par and they are equal actually providing equal opportunity on the paper. But those equal opportunities are not available on the ground. And I am the sufferer. I am the, I have experienced those things. While pursuing my MSc Bioinformatics, I was very first person to admit for MSc Bioinformatics program. People were saying that you cannot learn science, you cannot learn bioinformatics. So I have showed this rule, that where, in which rule you have, it is mentioned. कुठल्या नियमात लिहिलं आहे की एखादा ब्लाइंड व्यक्ती सायन्स शिकू शकत नाही, तो नियम मला दाखवा. So they were helpless. They were not able to show me की कुठला तरी हा नियम आहे याच्यामध्ये लिहिलंय की नाही शिकता येणार आहे म्हणून. So there I realized that rules are there, but the implementation is very less. So we need to work on the implementation of those rules. Secondly, persons with disabilities are in India, they are they are not knowing their rights, and even they are not spending time to go in court for their rights. So they are once or twice they request to the officers, as Datta Bhau said, they request. Okay, if the people are not responding, they are tolerated. They are tolerating these things. But in US and Canada, people do not tolerate. They directly go in court, file litigations, and then after litigations, people have to listen to them. So this is the change, that this is the difference actually which I have noted in India and other countries.
Thank you, Dhananjay sir. Radhika ma'am, you are one of the most successful architects in the city and also one of the very few who have committed to designing inclusive buildings. What, according to you, is inclusive design? How is it different from conventional design? And is it really very challenging to create inclusive design?
I think there should be no distinction between conventional design and inclusive design. It doesn't make sense to me. Once my eyes were opened, so to say. So I think once you're sensitized, I think it just comes naturally to you. That is what I feel.
And is it really difficult to, since you've been practicing?
It is not difficult at all. It is not difficult. As I said, it will come naturally because it's just like when you design, you have to follow some DC rules, which all of us follow. So similarly, you have to incorporate certain things which should be done automatically. That's what I feel. There should not be any doubt about that.
Yes. Abhijit, you have worked dedicatedly with the government for almost a decade on creating accessible infrastructure. Can you share what has been your experience and a little light on what are the key features of an accessible building?
So like most of my panelists have pointed out, and Dhananjay said specifically, Dhananjay said that the rules are in place. We already have a very strong law in RPWD Act 2016 that says rights for persons with disabilities. And Dattava also said that Sahanbhuti Nako Sandhi Havi. So it simply means that it's a right-based model. Everything is in place. We have a fantastic law in place, but I think some of you will be shocked to know that, as we all know, India is a federal structure. We have a central government, we have a state government. Some states have still not notified that, which means it's 2016, 2024, 8 years. Some states are still drafting the laws, the rules. Maharashtra is one of them. So if you take 8 years to notify an act and frame the rules, imagine the kind of lethargy that's there in the system. So my experience with working with the government has been simply this, that there are a lot of work to be done at policy level, at different levels. What I thought was the biggest gap is in the implementation. We have stringent laws, somebody needs to get after the concerned people to make it happen on ground. What I've been trying to do over the last 10, 12 years is that trying to work with individual government departments, urban local bodies, state government departments, to sensitize them that this law exists and then, this is what your role is. What I found out of the experience was that there are good people in the system. It's one thing to sit and criticize about the system, and I can say that system has done work, kuch nahi hota, but who is the system? System is people. And if you work with people, you realize that they have good intentions. Some of them are good, are not so good, some of them are good. And they also need some kind of input from us, of those who are aware, in terms of what exactly to do. For instance, there's a structure in place. There are state commissioners. I'm not explaining for the benefit of even maybe the youngsters here. Each state has a disability commissioner who has certain powers. He's a quasi-judicial authority who can actually summon and give you notices, and he's the right of a magistrate. But have you heard of anybody, any case in Maharashtra where somebody has been penalized for not following the RBWD Act? It's not happening. One case happened in Delhi, in Gurgaon, correct me if I'm wrong, that some person was a wheelchair user was not allowed to enter a pub. Then he complained, and then a notice was slapped and penal action was taken. So a lot of penal provisions. In the government sector, I think people are not really aware of their powers and of their duties also. So what we are trying to do is trying to work with commissioners and the top level officers at various organizations, urban local bodies, sensitize them, and then it goes from the top down to other levels. Also, one thing I find lacking is that the officers and the engineers are not trained at all. So on the ground level, if you see in Pune also, if you go on all the footpaths, you see the yellow tiles being laid everywhere. Those are tactile tiles meant to help the visually impaired people. I was walking along Varje building once, and there is work happening. And the mason was laying the tiles, and he was only using one type of tiles, the dotted tiles. There was no linear tiles there. So I stopped and said, "Ate Baba, काय करतोय ती tile दुसरी कुठे? दुसरी नाही मला एकच पॅटर्न आहे आमच्याकडे." अरे म्हटलं, "This is not the way. We need two tiles." नाही नाही, ते नवीन डिझाईन आले मार्केटमध्ये म्हटलं. So, and there was no junior engineer, nothing, nobody on site, only two masons trying their, and they were trying to figure out what to do with this. Now this, after we had a one-day session for 80 engineers of PMC in this college, same venue. We had a training session of junior engineers of PMC. Full day we sensitized them, we made them sit on wheelchair, we blindfolded them, we tied weights to their legs. After that, this is the output. So the problem is not in the structure. The problem is in people's attitudes and barriers in the mindsets. So like Datta also said that, and Kavita mentioned in her presentation, that the barrier of the mindset is the biggest barrier. Everything else is simple. It's not rocket science at all. Architects who create fantastic structures, for them these details are very simple. Like Radhika said, simple details, there's nothing no rocket science. The thing is, we are not willing to accept that, in the government sector also, this is what we need to do. It's still like about us, like Datta and Dhananjay are they. They are a person with disabilities, and I and Radhika and Kavita are sitting here, we are we. So there's us and they is the biggest problem I feel, and it is in the government sector also. Yeah.
I would like to add something here. I have heard even architects saying that why should we put a ramp just for 2% people? Because it spoils the aesthetics or whatever. If that is the attitude, then things are not going to change. Another thing I feel that why there is no visibility of special persons on the road is because of the bad infrastructure. And when we were doing the first project, like I've done 10 projects for senior citizen housing, And when we did the first one, this thought was there that should there be an exclusive project like this, like it's like a ghetto for seniors. So when you're stepping out of your house, you see only seniors. So it's not a very healthy thing actually per se. Like you need a mixed society. Like she said, it has to be a diverse society. But there is a need for this because there they feel safe, there they have all the facilities, there they have, inside the campus, they have all the very comfortable life. And fortunately for me, every Athashri project, whenever I meet anybody, they say my Athashri is the best. So actually the same principles are applied everywhere. So therefore they are comfortable and happy. That's all. Also now I'm doing a project specially for persons with autism and their parents. Now again, why an exclusive project? This question mark is always there, you know. But in our country, that is the need, at least I feel. And there are instances we see films also on these subjects where people from India have gone abroad and they are flying. They are able to do actually everything that we can do because nothing can stop them over there. The infrastructure is so good and so conducive that they just can't do anything. Why is there so much of a difference and so much of a disparity? You know, because those things are mandatory and they're taken for granted that it should be that way. You know, it's nothing different now. There's no extra effort in that. It's just there. So a special person also does not feel, that I'm different from anybody. You know? It's just part of life. Thank you.
थँक्यू मॅम. दत्ता भाऊ, आज कदाचित पहिल्यांदाच तुम्ही इतक्या आर्किटेक्ट्सच्या समोर मीटिंगमध्ये आहात. इथे काही खूप सिनियर आर्किटेक्ट आहेत जे आपल्या करिअरच्या क्लायमॅक्सला आहेत, टॉपला आहेत. काही ज्यांच्या मिडल म्हणजे करिअरचा मध्ये आहेत आणि काही जे आर्किटेक्ट होऊ पाहत आहेत. आर्किटेक्ट्सकडनं तुमच्या काय अपेक्षा आहेत आणि तुम्हाला काय त्यांना सांगायला आवडेल? म्हणजे कुठल्या प्रकारच्या गोष्टींचा विचार त्यांनी करायलाच हवा असं तुम्हाला आवर्जून सांगायला वाटेल?
नाही, अपंगामध्ये वेगवेगळे प्रकार आहेत. मूकबधीर आहेत, कर्णबधीर आहेत, अंध आहेत, वेगवेगळ्या प्रकारचे अपंग आहेत. तर त्यांच्याकरता ॲक्सेसेबल त्या प्रकारचे कसे करता येईल, एकत्रित करून ते कसे करता येईल. आता सध्या त्याची हळूहळू सुरुवात झालेली आहे मला वाटतं. पण आता जशी यंग पोरं येतील आर्किटेक्टमध्ये, त्यांच्या अजून काही वेगवेगळ्या कल्पना येतील, त्या पद्धतीने त्यांनी करावं की जेणेकरून अपंग हा डोळ्यासमोर न धरता तुम्ही सर्वसामान्य डोळ्यासमोर धरा, सगळेच धरा की बाबा कुठलाही जाणारा येणारा माणूस असतो तो अडचणीत असू शकतो. कोणाकडे बॅगा असू शकतात, कोणाचं वजन जास्त असू शकतं, अशा भरपूर प्रकार असतात. तर त्या सगळ्या गोष्टींचा सर्वोपरी विचार करून त्या क्षेत्रामध्ये जाऊन त्यांनी त्याचा विचार करून ते करायला लागणार आहे. आता तर हे सगळं ॲक्सेसेबल होणार आहे.
तुम्हाला कसं वाटतंय आर्किटेक्ट्सच्या?
तुम्हाला असं वाटतं का लवकर होऊ शकेल? तुमच्या आत्ताच्या अनुभवावरनं, भारताची परिस्थिती बघून, आपल्या पिंपरी चिंचवड, पुणे, तुमचं काय प्रांजळ मत काय?
पिंपरी चिंचवडमध्ये होईल लवकरच. बाकीचं नाही. कारण कसं झालंय, कसं माहिती आहे का, आता बघा तुम्ही ना, मी महाराष्ट्रभर भारतभर ग्रुपला आहे व्हॉट्सअपच्या. तुम्हाला हे विचार कधी दिसणार नाही 2000ची 4000 पेन्शन कशी होईल हे मला पाहिजे. प्रत्येकाची हेच अपेक्षा आहे. हां, आता ही जी काय पेन्शन मिळते, ॲक्च्युली ही पेन्शन तुमच्या औषध उपचाराकरता किंवा तुमच्या ह्याच्याकरता. आमचं आता मी हे बोलू शकत नाही कारण माझ्या मागं 5-6 हजाराची ते माझ्यावर बुमरंग व्हायचा कार्यक्रम होईल. त्यामुळं मी जाहीर असं अधिकाऱ्यां पुढे इकडे तिकडे बोलू शकत नाही. माझा मुद्दा हा आहे की तुम्ही ह्या पेन्शनच्या मिळवण्याच्या मागं लागण्यापेक्षा काहीतरी उद्योग व्यवसायाच्या मागं लागावं. शासनाने त्या बाबतीत त्याचा विचार करून त्यांना ती अशी पेन्शन देण्यापेक्षा त्यांचं उदरनिर्वाह कसा चालेल याच्या दृष्टिकोनातून त्यांनी विचार करायला पाहिजे. कारण आता बघा, आमच्या भाऊंनी एक सोडलं की आम्हाला 6000 रुपये पेन्शन पाहिजे. आंध्र प्रदेशच्या धर्तीवर ह्या गाड्याच्या गाड्या भरून येतील. बाकी तुमचा इतर काय मेळावा असेल काय असेल तर काय मिळतं का? एवढंच. बरोबर आहे ना भोळेसारखं? तर एवढंच, बाकी नाही काय. ही मानसिकता ज्या वेळेला बदलन त्यावेळेला हां तुम्ही पेन्शन द्या ना, कोणाला द्या, त्याचा काहीतरी क्रायटेरिया ठरवा की बाबा एकदम टोटल 100% अपंग आहे अशा लोकांना द्या ना. पण जे तेच पैसे घेऊन गावभर हिंडणार, महिनाभर मस्त आजकाल खाणार तर घरातच, कामधंदा काय नाही नुसते 4 जण जमणार आपल्याला पेन्शन इतक्या उभ्या राहिल्यात ना. मी म्हणतो आहे ना एवढी लोक आहेत तर मग आम्ही मागं का, एवढे विचारवंत अपंग नेते तयार झालेत की मग आम्ही मागं का. पण ते त्यांचा दृष्टिकोन हा की एवढ्या लोकांना जमा करायचं, मला यांच्या या स्थानिक स्वराज्य संस्थेकडून काय मिळवता येईल हेच पाहिजे. आता आमच्या इथं पण 2,000 रुपये पेन्शन होते, 2,500 रुपये दिला. आता परत चालू झालं आमच्या मिटिंगला, भाऊ ती थोडी जरा वाढवायचं बघा. अरे काय वाढवायचं, तुम्हाला लग्न केलं 1 लाख रुपये 2 लाख रुपये, तुम्हाला उद्योग व्यवसायाला 1 लाख रुपये अनुदान, तुम्ही त्याच्यात करा ना काहीतरी. उद्या महानगरपालिका ढासळली, पैसेच कमी पडले, मग
काय करणार?
कुणाच्या बोखंड्यावर जाऊन बसणार आणि कुणाकून घेणार, नाहीच बोलल्यानंतर काय करणार. बरं तुम्हाला कोर्टात नाही जायची गरज, तुम्ही नुसतंच आंदोलन, उठ सूट त्या अधिकाऱ्यापाशी जाऊन आंदोलन. आम्ही अपंग म्हणून करता तेच केलं, पण ते कायदेशीर होतं आणि त्याची गरज होती म्हणून आम्ही ते दर 15 दिवसांनी आष्टीकर साहेबांच्या कॅबिनमध्ये जाऊन बसायचं. 50-60 जण, एकटाच नाही, ते एक तर बारीक रस्ता, सगळे आम्ही आपलं बसलेलं तिथं. अरे साहेब म्हणायचे काय, मी ऐकत नाही लोक, मी काय करू त्याला, माझा काय दोष आहे त्याच्यामुळे, हे मलाच ढकल द्यात पुढे, मी असतो. शेवटी असं करून अशा गोष्टी करता तुम्ही करा ना ज्या तुम्हाला सार्वजनिकरित्या गरजेच्या आहेत आणि ज्याच्यामुळे तुमचं चांगलं होईल, अशा गोष्टी निश्चित तुम्ही समूहाने करा.
एक्झॅक्टली, म्हणजे ॲक्सेसिबल इन्फ्रास्ट्रक्चर आलं तर ऑटोमॅटिकली जॉब ऑपॉर्च्युनिटीज वाढतील किंवा आपापले उद्योग नवीन काढू शकतील आणि त्या प्रकारे ते
पालिकेच्या इंटरेस्टला जो रॅम झालाय तो पण असंच भांडणं करून घेतलं, म्हणजे त्याच्याशिवाय पर्याय नाही. मग आम्ही किती दिवस भांडणं करायचे, कशा करता करायची. 2,500 रुपये मिळवण्याकरता का आता औरंगाबाद जायचे 6,000 रुपये मिळवण्याकरता करायचं काय. काय शेवटी आता बहुसंख्येच्या मागत जावं लागतं आपल्याला.
पण मला कशा एका गोष्टीसाठी फक्त थँक्यू म्हणायला आवडेल की तुम्ही कल्पनाशक्ती हे शब्द वापरले की खरंच म्हणजे दिस इज ॲक्सेसिबिलिटी इज नॉट अबाउट की 1 2 3 4 7 8 9 10 हे चेकलिस्ट आहे आणि ह्या गोष्टी केल्या की तुमची बिल्डिंग ॲक्सेसिबल. ॲक्च्युली इट्स अ क्रिएटिव्ह एक्सरसाइज, लॉट ऑफ स्कोप फॉर इनोव्हेशन. कल्पनाशक्ती वापरून नवीन प्रकारे कसं आपण इन्क्लुझिव्हिटी तयार करू शकतो इन्फ्रास्ट्रक्चरमध्ये, हा मुद्दा प्रचंड म्हणजे आय थिंक इज मोस्ट व्हेरी इम्पॉर्टंट अँड समथिंग दॅट द यंगस्टर्स कॅन टेक अवे. येस, सॉरी.
So just to add a point, what Dattabu was saying was a monthly pension of 2,500 per is given to every person with disability with benchmark disabilities by PCMC. PMC देते का?
नाही, PMC नाही.
So now Andhra Pradesh government recently declared that every person with disability will get 6,000. So now that demand has soared from Maharashtra की आम्हाला पण 6,000 रुपये द्या. So there's a big andolon now planned on 9th of August, 9 August from Aurangabad for this. So the point he's trying to make is we always, even people with disabilities are used to the the charity model. की आम्हाला पैसे द्या, आम्हाला काहीतरी द्या. So it is more about the rights model, and even within the sector the fights are going on that instead of taking that 6,000 rupees per month, आपण असं काहीतरी घेऊया की we'll get permanent livelihood opportunity and a dignified life. So
आता गाळे काढल्यात, हॉकर झोनमध्ये गाळे काढले, गाळ्यांची किंमत किती 50 लाख रुपये 60 लाख रुपये, त्याच्यामध्ये 10 लाखात द्या ना एखाद्या अपंगाला, नका देऊ त्याला पेन्शन, त्याला इकडं सेटल करा ना, एकदाच त्याच्यावर खर्च करा, काय करायचं तू, म्हणजे तुम्हाला 4 आणि आमच्याकडे यायचं नाही परत, असं पण त्याला सांगा तुम्ही, तुला सगळं करून दिलं ना, तू आमच्याकडे यायचं ना, आणि जाईन कशाला, मला तरी काय करायचं जायची, पण आता ह्या लोकांसगळं जावं लागतं, आपले जे हाल झाले होते यांचे नको म्हणून जावं लागतं, नाही तर काय.
Dhananjay sir, you are a digital accessibility expert. Can you share some brief information on what is digital accessibility?
Yes, but before that, I would like to continue the, with your permission to this discussion. I just wanted to share one of the examples. My wife is born in Pimpri Chinchwad area, and she is the recipient of this what we can say pension yojana. अँड आत्तापर्यंत तिला ते पैसे मिळत होते. मग तिने 2 वेळा पत्र पाठवले की अरे मी आता एका कंपनीची CEO आहे, आता मला पैशांची गरज नाही आहे. तरी पण ते म्हणतात की मिळताय तर घ्या ना, मग काय बिघडलं मिळताय तर. सो शी वॉज सेईंग की नो 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 नो, आता तुम्ही सांगा मला की तुमच्या याच्यात काय कॉन्ट्रीब्यूट करायचं आहे ते आम्ही कॉन्ट्रीब्यूट करू म्हणून. सो दिस इज वॉट द पीपल्स ॲटिट्यूड इज दॅर की ठीक आहे आता फुकट मिळतं आहे तर घ्या ना, मग ते बंद करायची काय गरज आहे तुम्हाला, कोण बघतं आहे तुमचं की तुम्ही CEO आहे का नाही आहे म्हणून वगैरे. सो दिस इज हाऊ हां, मग ते 8 नाही ना त्याची. सो सो दिस इज वॉट. तर आम्ही हेच सांगितलं की तुम्ही आम्हाला ह्या गोष्टी नका देऊ, आमची सॉफ्टवेअर कंपनी वाटलंच तर आम्हाला प्रोजेक्ट द्या तुमच्या इकडून, आम्ही तुमच्या इकडून आम्हाला काहीतरी काय म्हणतो आपण त्याला, पिंपरी चिंचवड महानगरपालिकेचे कामं द्या आम्हाला. ओके, सो देअर वी कॅन कॉन्ट्रीब्यूट अँड वी कॅन गिव्ह यू सम क्वालिटी आउटपुट्स. तर अशा पद्धतीने या सगळ्या गोष्टी आहेत. संजय गांधी निराधार योजना किंवा अशा बऱ्याच योजना चालू आहेत आणि प्रत्येक वेळेस लोक, म्हणजे बरेचसे लोक, आपल्या इथे ॲटिट्यूडच तसा झालेला आहे की काही फ्री मिळाली, लाडली काय ती बहीण किंवा असं योजना की लगेच लोक खुश होतात. पण समजा तुमच्यासाठी काही फॅसिलिटी निर्माण केली तर त्या ओव्हरलुक्ड केल्या जातात. तर ते ॲटिट्यूड चेंज व्हायला इट विल टेक मच टाईम आय थिंक. So I'm coming to the question, your question. So what is digital accessibility? So digital accessibility is the making user interfaces of digital environment easily available for people with disabilities. For example, people with blindness, so they cannot see the interfaces. So they use screen reader, screen magnifier like software. Screen reader software is a software that reads out loud what appears on the screen. Means it reads everything like a human voice and reads the information on the website or web interfaces or mobile interfaces. So it also tells us like close button, cancel button, submit button kind of things. So what happened? These all buttons are not properly labeled by the developers. When the developer develops application, so everybody in the the developers believe that everybody in this world use mouse, but blind people never use mouse, and those who are motor disabilities who do not have their hands functional, they never use mouse. So in that scenario there should be an alternative way of using the user interfaces, and those alternative ways are not working properly because of poor design. So similar of your infrastructural design, the websites and the mobile applications user interfaces are poorly designed. They have not considered the universal design approach, and making those universal design approach, remediating those user interfaces is the accessibility. So I hope you might have been understood what is accessibility. Now there are standards like harmonized guidelines and space standards for barrier-free built environment in what we can say for architectures and building people, professionals. Websites have certain standards like WCAG, Web Content Accessibility Guidelines, or GIGW, Government of India Guidelines for Web Accessibility. So these guidelines are not specifically for one disability or two kinds of disabilities. It is for all. Like accessibility is not only for all disabilities but for all able-bodied people. Like you people can have better experience while using accessible website. So accessibility is not only for one disability, it is for all kinds of users with disabilities, and it is for all kind of people, able-bodied people. Now how to make it accessible? So we need to conduct an audit of the website and find out the issues, generate the audit report. Then the audit report is given to the development team. Development team fixes those issues, and again we check whether all the issues are fixed or not. And once all the issues are fixed, then we can say that the website is accessible for all kinds of people, including people with disabilities. So this is what the accessibility is.
Thank you, sir. It's
I have
a
one
big topic.
I have one question. Are all the government websites accessibly designed? I mean, designed with
You can
accessibility in
say,
mind?
you can ask a question that any of the website, a government's website is accessible. This way you can ask. And the answer is no. Any of the government website is not accessibility compliant.
Yes, that Dhananjay has done it. Okay, just to add one point, when Dhananjay sir was saying about accessibility in digital and web domain, it simply means, what does it mean in layman's terms? We are on the stage, we are all facing the audience. So while we just sat, I just told Dhananjay that आपण स्टेजवर आहोत, समोर एक 50-60 लोक आहेत, आणि so small description to make him aware of the surroundings. So this is what I did in essential terms was, when you have a website, you have a photograph, there's something in alt text. If you've seen just one small description. So when Dhananjay looks at a website or Twitter or Instagram, there's a small audio description that reads out that on the stage. So this is a small thing that is accessibility. It's not rocket science at all. Just to add on to what Dhananjay.
Yes, one more line I wanted to add. Like alternative text for images, like every image should be given label. Then every button, every link should be properly given a label so that screen reader can understand and read it. Then the color contrast should be properly given, like foreground and background color should be properly identified. Everything should be keyboard accessible. So these are the few features of accessibility compliant website.
Thank you, Dhananjay sir. It's a vast topic. I think very efficiently he has told us in couple of minutes what he generally covers in 45 minutes.
कविता एक
So-
मुद्दा आहे
हो, बोला ना.
पिंपरी चिंचवड महानगरपालिकेचा आता जो रॅम झालाय आतला, तो रॅम झाल्यानंतर आम्ही सकाळी जसं का आमचीच नोकरी, आम्हाला तिथं सही करायला जायला लागतं. सकाळी उठलं, आंघोळ पांघोळ केली की आपलं चला पालिकेत, असे 7-8 जण आम्ही जायचो. त्यावेळेला लोक भरपूर कामाला यायचे, मग लिफ्ट सगळ्या जाम असायच्या, आणि लिफ्ट एकच राखीव आयुक्त, पत्रकार, नगरसेवक, वरिष्ठ अधिकारी यांच्या घरात. हा ना, म्हणलं आपल्याला नाही राव लिफ्ट जायला यायला, म्हणजे 4 आहेत पण आपल्याला कुठं राखीव नाही आहे. मग आला आमच्या तडाख्यात सापडला अजित पवार, अतिरिक्त आयुक्त होते, ते नाही उगाच काहीतरी नका. अतिरिक्त आम्ही त्यांना निवेदन दिलं, त्या निवेदनात मागणी केली. नंतर मग आमच्या सर्व निवेदनासहित एक मिटिंग लावली. मग त्या मिटिंगमध्ये विषय काढला, म्हणलं एक लिफ्ट आमच्याकरता पाहिजे. मला वाटलं होतं पवारच येते, ते बोलले कशाला, सगळ्यांना आहे ना 4 लिफ्ट आहे, तुम्हाला कशाला पाहिजे, तुम्हाला कशाला पाहिजे, म्हणलं आमचं सोडा, तुम्हाला कशाला पाहिजे लिफ्ट एक राखीव. विषय त्याने माणसाने म्हणलं एक लिफ्ट त्यांच्याकरता मंजूर करून टाका, झालं. असं एक मुद्दा असा आहे, तुमच्याकडे काय म्हणजे माझ्यासारख्या कार्यकर्त्याकडे कसलीच अपेक्षा नाही, कोणाकडून काय मिळवायचा विषय नाही आहे. त्यामुळं आम्हाला घाबरायची गरज नाही. खरा अजित पवार असो नाही तर डुप्लिकेट अजित पवार असो, विषय देत नाही कसलं. आम्ही अजित पवारलाही बोललेलो आहे, असा विषय नाही की नाही बोललेला. आमच्या स्टॉलच्या संदर्भात विषय होता, मनीभाई देसाईच्या बँकेचं उद्घाटन होतं, तिथं आले होते ते. मंगलाताई कदम त्यावेळेला महापौर होत्या पिंपरी चिंचवड महानगरपालिका. तर ते म्हणले अजितदादाकडे गेलो मी, आणि त्यांचाच कार्यकर्ता मला गोटा घालून तिकडे घालवणार, म्हणजे चढवणार झाडाव. मी गेलो आपलं, म्हणलं असा असा विषय, म्हणलं दादा हा तुम्हाला कोणी टपऱ्या टाकायला सांगितलं, काय करायला सांगितलं, दुनियाभरच्या ते झोपडपट्टी करून टाकली पार पिंपरी चिंचवडची, तुमच्याच कार्यकर्त्यांनी केली. म्हणलं तुम्ही सर्वे करा, म्हणलं आमचे 2-4 जण असतील, तुमचे 150 लोक असतील, म्हणलं हे कोणी केलं. त्या मंगलताईंना म्हणलं यांचं काय ते करून द्या. दादा म्हणलं जरा व्यवस्थित बोलत जावं, तुम्ही पहिलं हे बघा तुमच्या कार्यकर्त्यांचे किती स्टॉल आहेत ते, मग आम्हाला बोला. त्याचा जो कार्यकर्ता होता ज्यांनी तिथं नेला, म्हणला भाऊ तुला परत कधी नेणार नाही मी तिथं.
So basically it's all about the rights model, and vocal people with disabilities are very vocal in what they need, because perpetually they have not been denied opportunities. So खूप वेळा असं पण होतं की अरे ते आले, मला तर नेहमी असं होतं की ते आले, ते तुझी लोक आली, ते आले आणि मग ते ॲग्रेसिव्ह असतात सगळं. पण त्याचं कारण असं आहे की देर इज नॉट इनफ डायलॉग आणि परपेच्युअल इमॅजिनेशन झाल्यामुळे दॅट ॲग्रेशन कम्स आउट. सो
Abhijit, please continue talking. Since you have recently completed the District Disability Rehabilitation Center for PCMC, and a couple of other projects based on the universal design principle. So Dhananjay mentioned about universal design. So what is universal design? It is gaining popularity across the world. Do we have any buildings in the country which demonstrate universal design principles? And what should be the mandatory features that a accessible building should definitely consider or incorporate?
First of all, are we all aware of how many disabilities are there? Any idea? Anybody has? What are the types of disabilities? We'll just have an open session because. So, you have two in front of you. Am I able-bodied or disabled? Question. Am I able-bodied or am I disabled? So, that's an assumption because we are basing our judgment on the appearances, right? So there are 21 types of disabilities, just for our information. So the RPWD Act recognizes 21 disabilities. Broadly, we know the larger, most visible ones are people with locomotor disabilities, which are physical impairments or visual impairment, hearing impairment, speech impairment. There are many other disabilities which are not visible. So those I'll categorize into invisible disabilities. Kavita, you can have a session later with the details about it, but I'm just making a background for this. So there is autism, there is neurological diversity, there is intellectual disabilities, then there are blood disorders like sickle cell, thalassemia. So there are 21 in all. Even acid attack victims are classified as people with disabilities. People with dwarfism are considered as people with disabilities. So yeah. So 21, there's huge spectrum. Leprosy cured also, because you end up losing fingers and limbs and some parts of your bodies. So there's a huge spectrum of people there. Now consider that a pregnant lady, she is not classified as disabled, but she is a pregnant lady with special needs at that point in time. She cannot bend, lift, so a lot of other physical constraints there. A small child, elderly citizen. So if you add up to all of these, this is around 30% of our population is what we have, more than that, 30, 40, 50%, yeah. So that is, so we have 150 crores of people, and like, now look at the amount of people who need. Now, let me not get into disabilities. If you go to the railway station, lately very much traveled with a large bag, suitcase, how easy it is to cross Pune station, get down, go into the, I mean, it's a harrowing experience for anybody. So if you look at things, universal design will touch everybody's lives in very simple ways. Opening a small bottle which has, a cap. I can't open those plastic wrappers. They're written tear here, the Katri sign aste, but I can't read to that distance. And then everything becomes difficult. So, to come back to your point, if you look at this entire spectrum of people with disabilities, how does universal design play a role and what are the various features of building? So we have to look at all these people, not just people with disability, not the people like Datta who are on a wheelchair user or Dhananjay who will rely on tactile tiles or maybe braille signs or audio cues. So when you look at that, I think I had a very nice visual in one of your presentations only, that there is a school and it's snowing and there is a ramp and there are steps. One kid is sitting on a wheelchair near the ramp and 20 kids are standing near the steps waiting for the person to clean the snow from the approachway. And the person tells the kid that you wait while I clean the steps first because there are 20 people there and you are only one person here for the ramp. So this kid says, why don't you clean the ramp? We all can go on the ramp. So the whole thing is this, so you need to design for the baseline. Now if you start looking at it, why does every staircase have a step which is 150 mm riser, 6 inches? Because it's in the bylaw, embedded. We've been learning about it and doing it for years. And why do we still have to talk about a ramp? The gradient has to be 1 in 12 because otherwise the wheelchair will topple because the center of gravity will shift. Now, considering all this, what I really feel is, I'm going round and round, I know, but I'll just come back to your question. I don't think there's a single good example of a building that has been, because most of the buildings have been done earlier on. We are doing retrofitting now. So there's this term called in disability retrofitting, where we go and add things now to existing buildings, where, public buildings I'm speaking about, where we are adding this. Of course, with projects like Atashi, which ma'am is doing, things are changing for the better with the design thought being embedded with universal design, and then we kind of end up with those solutions which are very natural and are based on accessibility and universal design principles. But to summarize in terms of what are the various aspects, so we to look at the whole building, experience. So only providing a ramp at the entry does not mean accessibility. Now, if you come to a building entrance, there's a security gate. Can I actually can Dattababu reach out the watchman? Is a visual contact there? Can he enter the register? Is the ledge at which he writes at the same level, which enables him to write? At the entry of building campus, we have these cattle catchers. We have those pipes that stop the cattle from coming in. Visually impaired people will get stuck in that. Their stick white cane will get stuck into that. Is there a clear demarcated path from the entry to the main building? Is there a vehicle and pedestrian segregation? All these things are very important. It's a long 17, 18 parameters that has to be considered. But I would say we have to look at all aspects and all disabilities. Critical ones I'm mentioning is safety, clear demarcated pathways, leveled pathways, ramps, provision of ramps, handrails at different levels, handrails in long corridors, accessible toilets, the most neglected aspect in all our buildings. Nearly none of our buildings have accessible toilets provided in sufficient number and in correct locations. Just like a ramp is tucked away somewhere in the corner, I've seen many buildings that the main entry is very symmetrical, very grand entry, and the ramp is somewhere in the corner, stuck in the side margins because दोन तीनच लोक येतील जातील तिकडनं. So this is the whole story of.
Most of the time it will be locked and the key is missing.
Yeah, the toilets are locked. We have done this.
Or it is used as a janitor room.
We traveled across India doing audits for these buildings, and most of the toilets were locked because nobody uses them.
तुम्ही उद्या पीएमआरडी ऑफिसला या, मिनी मंत्रालय या ती सतत बंद असतं. कितीतरी वेळा भांडणे केली तेवढं पुरतं जातच नाही. अरे आम्ही तुम्हाला काय गेले
No, that is a misconception that it is to be used only for persons with disabilities. No, it can be used by anybody. In fact, it should be put to use so that it is maintained.
जे साफसफाई वाले वापरतात.
Is converted a janitor room or watchman's room or some other
Abhijit,
storerooms?
I would just like to engage the audience here. All of you can see that lock there to that door? Yes, everybody can see that? Okay, now do you think that's easy for Dattabhau or for Dhananjay to use? And instead of that, if there was a lever handle, right, a lock with a lever handle, do you think it would be easier to use? Yes, universalist design is just that. Inclusive design is just that. Simple, intuitive design, which minimizes effort, which conserves human energy, which is, which can be used in a easy way, a comfortable way, and which is safe, simply is universal design. No rocket science at all. So anything that is simple is very close to universal design, right? So a little bit of empathy and creativity is what you need actually to create this. Radhika ma'am, question to you. You have traveled across the world. Which country do you think was very sensitive to this particular need, and what kind of examples did you see there?
See, I think in the developed countries, all the public buildings, especially as tourists, we visit the art galleries or museums. They are all accessible places. So anybody can, go there and enjoy the artwork over there. That's what I think. Because it's just there, I am not able to explain because it, even the display in the museums is made in such a way that persons with disabilities can also enjoy each and every artifact.
Right.
That's what.
Okay. So now I'll come to the last round of question. Before that, anybody in the audience who would like to ask? Yeah.
नमस्कार, ऐकायला येते? माझं नाव अरुण अत्रे, मी मेकॅनिकल इंजिनियर आहे आणि 2007मध्ये मी आर्किटेक्चर कॉलेजला सर्व्हिसेस शिकवतो. आर्किटेक्चर कॉलेजमध्ये सर्व्हिसेस शिकवतो. 17-18 वर्ष झाली. हा आजचा विषय मला खूप आवडला. सहवेदना आणि संवेदना या गोष्टीचा निगडीत हा विषय आहे. मला कोणतरी संबंधित आहे म्हणून मी एक विषय करायचा, हा विचार करायचा, यापेक्षा ही माझी जबाबदारी आहे. मी कोणाशी जवळचा आहे का नाही हे मुद्दा नाहीच आहे. सो समबडी इज नियर टू मी, दॅट्स वाय आय एम डुईंग दिस वर्क. दिस इज रॉंग ॲटिट्यूड. This is not good. So everyone should be sensitive, especially when I am talking to my architecture students and friends and colleagues and faculties. We must take into account this very, very important factor. थोडं मराठीमध्ये सांगतो, सगळ्यांना कळावं म्हणून मी मराठीमध्ये बोलतो. सहवेद आणि संवेदना महत्त्वाच्या आहेत. मी शिकवतो तेव्हा मला असं वाटतं की आपण माझा कोणतरी जवळचा आहे म्हणून मी हे काम करायचं नाही. सगळ्यांना याची जरुरी आहे. त्याचा विचार करून आपण याच्यामध्ये काम करायला पाहिजे. तर जेव्हा मी सर्व्हिसेस शिकवतो तेव्हा इन्क्लुझिव्ह डिझाईन हा जो विषय आहे, दॅट डिझाईन सब्जेक्ट इज व्हेरी व्हेरी इम्पॉर्टंट अकॉर्डिंग टू मी. व्हॉट आय सजेस्ट इज दॅट, ऑर अदर आय फील इज दॅट SPPU किंवा भारतीय विद्यापीठ, आपले जे विद्यापीठ आहेत, दे शुड हॅव टॉपिक्स फॉर सर्व्हिसेस फॉर these specially needed persons. Like you are rightly categorized 21 things, and for them what are the services required? Really I am also not aware. So probably I am there, your student, to understand, and I'll take this responsibility to guide to my architecture students, because I have that capacity to talk to the people. I have the access to the students, so I will teach this subject of the services, maybe air conditioning, maybe water supply, maybe electricity, the topic that we are teaching to all the students. हे ह्या लोकांसाठी कसं करता येईल हा मला प्रश्न पडलेला आहे, आणि मी याच्यामध्ये काही काम कधी करायला तयार आहे.
Yes, so actually there are board of studies in the university, so like architecture board of studies and computer board of studies and design board of studies kind of. So there, they should design such kind of syllabus, and that should be the part of mainstream courses, and then people can study this, and they will have actual sensitization in mainstream sensitization we can do. And this initiative, I think, Kavita madam, if we can take it up at least in Bharati University or in our university, Pune University, so that would be a great initiative.
We have been trying for the Center for Disability Studies for a long time. Yes, but I would like to share here, sir, if I can, just in a minute, that my own journey, of course, I mean, Adit changed my life and, my whole perspective of looking at architecture. But as I was moving around, visiting therapy places and things like that, and I got to see many more types of people and the kind of difficulties they were facing by by wrongly designed or insensitively designed or incorrectly designed environment. That's where I started contemplating whether I'm really teaching the right kind of architecture to my students, and am I really missing out on exposing them to design more sensitively. And then I started learning about barrier-free design. Then it was called that. And then I reached out to researchers and to experts across the world who were working on this subject, and then I got to know about universal design. And then I thought, while learning, I don't have the time to wait, so why don't I start just simultaneously teaching universal design. And then I started a universal design elective. So indeed, this is my story, but if every faculty of architecture and design kind of takes this kind of an onus and decides to integrate it in any and every subject, I would say, it's not just services, building technology or design, landscape, etc. I mean, I think we will not require a special subject or a elective or a course. It would be a part of, simply part of what we design. Yeah. Yes.
So, good evening. I'm Rahul Kadam, a practicing architect. I think just wanted to add, first of all, congratulate Isa and Kavita to organize this kind of session. Sadly, the turnout is not very good. Should have been more. I just wanted to add a few experiences. A lot of my work in my practice is on corporate design and corporate spaces, and every time we meet a client, it's frustrating sometimes to educate them why a universal access toilet is required, why ramps are required. I remember one call to Kavita one day in the evening where I decided to walk out of a project because the client was not ready to provide that, to the extent that a CEO of a company had to be told that if he had an accident tomorrow morning, can he use the restroom? So the arrogance is huge.
Yes.
The awareness is very bad, although everything is there on paper. Also, at architecture school, it's a matter of convenience of giving a ramp or not giving it, or giving the basic things that needed for universal accessibility. So I think that cultural shift has to come. And even in practice, I think if this is mandated by the law only, it will happen. Right now, it is not mandated. I've worked in the UK, where as a part of the approval process, there is a disability auditor who audits the design.
Correct.
And then only the building permissions are given. We don't have that process here.
Correct.
We only think if plinth profile is matching, shell profile is matching, but these things are not looked at. So I think if there has to be some concerted effort through professional bodies to mandate this into the mainstream. Also on the awards, I want to say, most of the awards don't have a criteria. So I would plead ESA to have that as a criteria.
If
for the
ESA committee
next
members, I have
awards,
already put in this
it
recommendation
has
many,
to
many years
come.
before.
It has to come. Because there's a very casualness about this aspect. And
And that is the reason when students ask me what case studies to do, I really don't have an answer, to be
so I think they're simple common sense things, as everybody was saying, but I think the main thing is sensitivity. That is lacking surely, and we have to make this as a proper representation to where it matters. I have seen whenever you tell another person that if he or she loses their legs tomorrow morning, then they immediately start understanding. So you have to bring that fear psychosis. Is that bad?
Yeah,
And I think that's not required. Yeah.
No, so that's why the
So-
value system is very important, and educational institutes, of course, are the places where we can bring in this
I
value
think
system.
at the academic level, if these are not looked into a thesis, I think that he should not become an architect, he or she. That's my view.
I just remembered, I'd like to share, when I was teaching at Bharati Vidyapit as a visiting professor for design. One boy from my class, he had, in the middle of the term, he had gone home. Actually, he was in Pune, it was his birthday, and he had gone for an outing. And his parents came to give him a surprise, and he met with an accident and lost his leg, one of his legs. So because his phone was not reachable, and then parents came to know that he's met with an accident. And he's a very brave boy. He has already graduated now, but he came back after a gap. After his operation, he was fitted with an artificial leg. But the classroom was shifted to the ground floor because the lift was not operational. So the classroom was shifted on the ground floor for him. And his classmate used to, once during my studio period, there was some discomfort. His artificial leg had shifted or something, and his friends just excused themselves. They helped him to fix it, and they came back. So, like you said, today I am all right. Tomorrow I don't know what is going to happen. So we always think it as they, like he was saying, tumche lok aale or they, you know. We don't think that anything can happen to me. Like without my specs, I am almost blind. I see very blurred. You know, I cannot see or I cannot operate. So that is a kind of a handicap for me. So each one of us has some degree of handicap, I would say that. But some are easily overcome, some are not. They need an, a better environment or better infrastructure for that. As architects, I feel like in my practice, I try to sensitize my interns. Whoever comes to my office, I try to sensitize them. And sensitizing as many people as you can is the best thing that we can do, I think.
Yeah, it starts with the entrance.
Yes.
Anybody else in the audience?
Question actually for you and Abhijit probably because you have been working in this field for quite some time. We've been talking about the rights of the disabled persons and the fights that are going on for that, all that. But what's the other aspect? What's the scene so far as rehabilitation is concerned, or so far as aiding them with skill development from CSR or something? How can we help there, or what can be done in that respect?
You want to answer or should? Yeah. Okay. So it's not a very, though, I mean, there is a lot that can be done, but sadly, not much is being done. Just to give you an example, every district has a disability rehabilitation center. Must have a district disability rehabilitation center, which is called DDRC. Now, this whole concept of DDRC was done much before when the first RPWD Act was passed. And at that time, only 7 types of disabilities were identified. Now, with the 2016 amendment, 21 types of disabilities, like Abhijit said. The Act changed, but what should be the constituent of a DDRC has not changed. It's still about 4,000 square feet of area to cater to rehabilitation services for all kinds of disabilities, right? But yes, I mean there are good people at the helm of the affairs, and a little bit of sensitization that we could do, and we were able to convince the decision makers to build an entire 24,000 square feet facility, the first of its kind for in the country, with which are showcasing more than 17 types of therapies. So there are 2 such happening. So in 2024 we are getting the first DDRC, in short, but I mean we are clapping, but it's a sad state of affairs, right? Now similarly, a lot can be done for skill development. So there is a policy and mechanism and all that, but do we really have skill development centers? No. So yes, that is something that really needs to be done.
like
Whatever skill development is happening with stereotype practices like candle making or tailoring or paper bag making, which is not the case. Look at Dhananjay. He's a CEO of a company. I think you're going to get, is it a private limited already, Dhananjay?
Yes, actually I wanted to add there are many NGOs, they are working for skill development. For example, finishing schools they runs. Some NGOs runs a kind of, computer training program for persons with disabilities. So these are quite a few things they are doing. But a simple thing, actually, instead of having special skills, if we are, including them in the mainstream education, for example, if I wanted to learn science and engineering, and if a blind person wants to learn a master's in business administration, so their books are not accessible. The accessible forms, I mean the books are not in the accessible format. So CSR can contribute in making the accessible books, and then those accessible books can be available for those who wanted to learn, pursue higher education or any kinds of skilling, and that could be one of the areas.
Just to add on to what Dhananjay spoke about, like sir, to answer your question, CSR has a big opportunity, there's a big space there because like Kavita rightly said, even today the skilling is focused on the base level skills which more severe cases with person with disabilities have to be trained into. But we are not used to seeing people like Dhananjay coming and talking about, so from the position of equality we don't see that happening. We see more or less a charity model where Dhananjay needs some help, Dhananjay is here to give help to whoever needs. That's the whole story. So to reach that point, skilling is definitely very much needed. Some good examples are there. PCMC is now partnering with a lot of corporates there to create CSR funds. We're also working with corporates in PCMC area to go and understand what are the kind of skill sets they require. Because it's a two-way story. Corporates say that we don't find the right people, and PWD's person with disabilities say that we don't get the right job. So there is whole gap there which we identified. So we are working with these corporates and trying to find out what are the roles in their factories, in their offices, what do they need. And then we come back and then those skill sets are developed and then the corporates help us in creating those programs for the people. So it's a two-way traffic in that sense. But there's a huge gap there, and with the skill sets needed as the technology changes with a lot of things happening, constant flux, there's a huge demand for creating those vocational courses. I'll share a personal example. For our son, we were struggling which course to put him into. Like Dhananjay said, there is no educational material that is accessible. So audio books are one thing. Dhananjay's company does it, and they convert books into audio formats for all higher education. But how do we teach somebody with autism about design? So there are a lot of gaps everywhere that we see around us. And if we can only get CSR funds is a problem many times. Government has limited resources. Expecting government to do everything is not possible. So though we work a lot with governments, we also are looking to partner with a lot of CSR, and organizations who can actually look at a project and then help them convert into that kind of a tangible result that can benefit the skilling sector specifically.
One example of an inclusive park which I recently completed in Kolkata. Now that was actually the land belonged to Kolkata Development, NKDA, the new Kolkata Development Authority. The project was funded by LTI Mindtree. And the project was coordinated and curated by an NGO, international NGO called CBM. And I was, hired as an accessibility and inclusive design consultant. So, yeah, people are coming together, collaborating and doing stuff.
To continue with what he was saying, I think there is a gap between, there should be people doing this more. Companies may be ready to employ special persons, but they don't know how to do it. So there should be matching of skills, or the requirement and the skill set the person has should be matched. So, so that is the important part. There is a gap there, I think.
Just before you conclude, I want to say something. You're concluding now? I think we are.
If you can be short and quick,
No, I just said that a takeaway for this today's session was we all go back and we start with one simple thing is we call. So you must be confused. काय म्हणायचं? Specially abled, handicapped, disabled, Divyang. So there are a lot of terms floating around in the sector. So the generally accepted term universally is persons with disabilities. Because that is first a person, a people, is a human being. Disability comes later. So instead of saying handicapped person or disabled person or specially abled, तो काय तुमच्याकडे दिव्य शक्ती आहे का कुठली आहे शोधतोय तो दिस अ रनिंग जोक बिटवीन अस की तुमच्याकडे कुठली दिव्य शक्ती नाही शोधतोय जरा मिळालं की सांगतो सो हा मिथ आहे असं काही नसतं देर इज नथिंग स्पेशल और इट्स ओनली दॅट धनंजय और दत्ताभाऊ हॅज kind of honed their other senses to be more sharp and it's not a gift असं काही नसतं it's all a myth. So let's all at least start by saying that person with disabilities is the right term to use, and that will be a big takeaway for us to going forward from here.
Another thing is, I think successful people or people who are on the stage are, I think, people who have been able to adapt more than the others. So they have to keep adapting themselves to the existing environments, and they have been able to adapt it better than others. That is the only thing.
Sum up काही करत नाही later do that. But there are certain observations I will say that when you said that the yellow tiles, yeah, I generally take a morning walk in my. It doesn't look like मुझको देख के ऐसा लगता नहीं लेकिन but I do take a morning walk, and when I was doing this tactile flooring that came into my life for the first time for a project, then fortunately I found those yellow tiles on the footpath. So I was very proud that yes, my area had tactile tiles, so we are disabled friendly, and I started walking on that tile. And then I found out that I would have struck my head at least on 2 branches. And after that, I have found out that yes, I had to turn somewhere. So that was one. That if you want to do it, then you have to do it properly. Next, like Rahul said, that even it is difficult for a client to accept a ramp, or like she said, because it's very difficult. कि मेरे aesthetics में क्या होता है? Now the question is far deeper. Because probably a client will accept a ramp. That is now a more acceptable thing. But when I start telling him that his granite lobby needs a tactile floor, you understand what is going to happen. Or when my toilet arrows need some audio feedback in his otherwise calm lobby where the receptionist also doesn't speak, and the people they just sit around. So this is not a very simple this thing. The task is much more. Providing a ramp is just beginning. I mean, or not even a beginning, I will say, because that's still not a beginning. But you need to think about these other aspects which go into the design.
Sir, but design is a problem-solving exercise.
No, I'm coming to that. The third problem that you said that you were not able to give a case study to your students. So probably the answer is for them to go and make an audit of a building. They will learn quickly. They will learn in a better fashion, and they will probably understand what is to be done. But I was thinking that if there are no case studies, even for the architects, to understand all these 21 disabilities and what is to be done for them is a huge task. So there may not be a model or case study, but I'm sure with your resources and college, you can create at least a 3D model of a building and surrounding where all these things can be put in, and probably we will be able to give some answers to the granite lobbies and all other things that can be done there. So have ready answers, and those ready answers probably will engage the client in a better fashion, and we can then have more clients coming in toward the barrier-free architecture. That is a suggestion. And another suggestion that he said that it should be included in the ASA awards. But I will say that don't make it just one additional parameter. Give it status, because if you just make it one additional parameter, it's not going to do anything. But if you give it a status like the best barrier-free building or the best barrier-free campus or best barrier-free architecture, then that will carry that status. And then it will start resonating with the architects also.
Yes, government of India is already, yeah, a government of India is already recognizing such kind of organizations. NCPDP is one of the organization it is recognizing. There are 3-4 such awards instituted in India, and they are recognizing such institutes, that best accessible institutes.
Yeah, but I mean, if organizations like ESA start, to put up this practice, I'm sure it will inspire other organizations as well. Yeah. Yes.
Makrant, I just want to add one point, because like you rightly mentioned, aesthetics is a big concern, and I myself have faced this because we just had a granite lobby done and you can't have the yellow tiles running. So we are working closely with a lot of manufacturers to sensitize them about the aesthetics. We are using a 1965 design mold for the tactile tiles done in Japan, and the same thing is continuing. So now Yeah, so the thing is demand supply again. So there's a lot of things that work, but this is a very important point which already work has started happening in terms of refining the designs to suit the contemporary requirements and the aesthetics.
A complete ecosystem of, products and vendors and services will have to be created. So thank you so much to, ma'am, you want to say something?
No, I just wanted to say a simple thing as proper signages or the standardized signages are not also seen in public buildings. This is the point I wanted to add.
It is rather appeal or whatever you can consider. Many architects are sitting here, so if they will consider henceforth, they will only design accessible blueprints. So that will definitely change the scenario, at least in Pune city or around. So this is one. And secondly, everyone should consider accessibility as part of their regular, what we can say, activity. Then we all here in this auditorium can make a lot of changes in the society.
So, on behalf of everybody, I would like to express my sincere gratitude to all the panelists for sharing your experiences, your journey, and your learnings with the audience. I really hope each one of you found this evening and the takeaways meaningful. And lastly, again, heartfelt gratitude to ESA and office bearers of ESA for organizing this event and taking the initiative. We haven't had a turnout, but I still am very happy that this could happen with your initiative, and we hope that we will continue this and take it forward. Thank you so much.
Can you please be seated? Please be seated. I would like to make an observation from my end is that people who have limitations should get those opportunities, but they are actually fighting for them. So I don't think that's a very ideal scenario. But with their positivity, with their determination, I think, and all these people here, they're actually making a change. So I think we should really appreciate that. की तो actually बदल घडवत आहेत ते grassroots level. So I think we should appreciate the panelists that we have here. I would request the SIEC members to have a photo with the panelists if they could come on stage. Please, a quick one.
तुम्ही बसा stand behind.
This young lady wants to share an experience. So let's give her.
Hello all, मी अनन्या. राईट नाव आय एम इन 4th इयर. आणि 1 वर्षाआधी मी एक NGO जॉईन केला. त्याच्या थ्रू एका मी सेंटरवर जाते प्रत्येक संडेला. आणि फर्स्ट डे जेव्हा मी तिथे गेले, देवर पीपल जे मेंटली रिटार्डेड आहेत. आणि तो फर्स्ट डेचा एक्सपिरियन्स मला अजून पण आठवतो. आय ऑलमोस्ट क्राईड की ते लोक एवढे जास्त वेगळे आहेत आपल्यापेक्षा. हा माझा पहिल्या दिवशीचा एक्सपिरियन्स होता. आणि देन आय रिमाइंड की कविता मॅमची स्टोरी. आणि त्या दिवशी नंतर मी स्वतःला गिअरअप केलं आणि करेज गिअरअप केलं. आणि आज ऑलमोस्ट 1 वर्ष झालं आहे. आणि आता माझा असा अप्रोच आहे की ते लोक आपल्यापेक्षा अजिबात वेगळे नाही.
I request Architect Sanjay Tasgavkar, the Honorable Secretary of Bnca Pune, to give his vote of thanks.
Good evening, everybody. As Aloka pointed out in the beginning of the event, it's an exclusive thing for an inclusive architecture. So that was a very nicely coined statement. And I thank Kavita to get this done together with ESA. In fact, I would rather request you to change the percentage of disabled people. I would say we all 100% are disabled, like Abhijit mentioned or even Rahul mentioned. We are having our eyes closed, we are having our ears closed and minds also closed. So we are really disabled. So we should understand more about these things, and as everyone has pointed, Rahul and Makarand and Abhijit, Bole sir has been really an eye opener for all of us की एवढं काही त्यांनी केलेलं आहे. We really, even being with means again like Abhijit said, are we really able person? That I feel disabled in front of him. So to end this function formally, I thank Kavita, I thank the panelists, Radhika ma'am, Abhijit, Datta Bhau and Bole sir. Also thank all of you who have found some time for this important topic to be discussed. I thank Bnca for providing us this nice auditorium and the venue. I thank the ESA EC committee and the program committee for arranging this. And thanks again. Good evening.